Hey guys, Ash here from C4E Tech, and today we're gonna do something that we've not done in a long time. It's time to build a PC. With the new 7000 series AMD processors coming out, I thought now's as good a time as any to build one. And I actually had to travel to India for an eye surgery. I mean, not exactly a surgery, a minor procedure that is still done in an operating theater. Anyway, I digress. So, given I was coming here anyway, I reached out to Gigabyte to see if they could hook me up with some parts for a build. What I had in mind was doing a build around the 1 lakh price point. Spoiler alert, I ended up going over budget by a little bit, just a little bit, about 20%. Anyways, something around that segment is what I wanted to do. And given the gains that Ryzen 7000 series brings to the table, I wanted to see what kind of PC we could put together at that price. So here's what we're going to be doing. I've already uploaded a teaser of the build as a short. So in this video, I'm going to explain what parts I went with and why. And we'll also end up testing the PC out to see how it fares with benches and also test some modern games on it. For the processor, initially given my 1 lakh target, I wanted to go with the AMD Ryzen 7600X. It felt like the perfect fit, very cost effective, a good middle ground between price and performance. But sadly, I couldn't get it as quickly as I wanted it to. Now, a couple of these kind of decisions I ended up making, they are the reason why my budget kind of went over the 1 lakh mark. So anyways, the 7700X, I ended up going with the Ryzen 7 7000 series processor that AMD recently launched. It's a solid pick. For a little bit more, it gives us 2 extra cores and 4 extra threads, which are going to make a substantial difference with multi-core performance. For the motherboard, I went with Gigabyte's B650 Aorus Elite. It pairs well with that 7700X. It's got 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, covered heat pipes, enough room for expansion, thermal guards for the M.2 drives. I especially love the screwless design here. Given how much NVMe SSDs are becoming part and parcel of our builds these days, it's pretty cool to not have to tinker around with that tiny little screw. Now, talking about how common these drives have been getting, as a result of that, Gen 4 M.2 prices have also been dropping. So though initially I contemplated going with a Gen 3 drive, but given these days the price difference between Gen 3 and Gen 4 isn't all that much, I ended up settling on a Aorus 500 gig Gen 4 NVMe. This gets you about 5 Gbps reads and 2.5 Gbps writes, which is solid for a boot drive. That said, if you wanted to save a little bit of money, you could go with a Gen 3 or even a regular SATA SSD. Should still give you decent boot and app launch times and save you a pretty penny. For the RAM, I went with two 8 gig sticks of 4800 MHz DDR5 from Crucial. Now, before you say faster RAM would have been great, it would have been better, I dare you. I dare you to find something faster, because this was literally the only 8 gig DDR5 stick available. Today, if you are going for a similar build and faster RAM is an option for you, please, by all means, get it. Moving on to cases, guys, when I started building PCs, I used to love large cases. They are typically easy to build in and give you so much room for expansion in the future, especially when I was accumulating hard drives like there was no tomorrow. But these days, given I don't really rely on hard drives as much, I've got a server where my hard drives are, and it's mostly M.2 drives and 2.5 inch SSDs that I'm going to be putting into my PCs. So I find larger cases being a little cumbersome with day-to-day usage. There are times where they wouldn't fit under a desk or in a spot I'd want them to go in, and they're also hefty to move around. That's one of the reasons why I ended up not splurging on the case here and instead went with the Cougar MX440. Now, this is a decent mid-tower case. One negative, if I had to nitpick, would be the fact that the front panel, it doesn't have Type-C there. The board does support 20 Gbps Type-C for the front, so that felt like a little bit of a letdown. Barring that nitpick, this is an excellent feature-packed case that, it can take 3.5 inch drives, 2.5 inch drives. It supports up to 6 fans. With the radiators, you could go with a 240mm rad mounted up top, which I feel is just fine for the 7700X. Now, if you wanted to go with something larger, you could instead remove the fans to the front and go with the 360mm rad there. So yeah, like I said, I went with the 240, the Cooler Master ML240L V2 ARGB. That is my AIO of choice for this build. And for the PSU, to be honest, I should have probably gone with something modular. but instead chose to go with the 80 plus bronze certified Gigabyte P650B. My reasoning was that, hey, there's a lot of room down here in this case, and I have no intention of going with any 2.5 or 3.5 inch drives, and the 650 watt, it's plenty enough for what we are doing here. So saving a bit of money made sense to me. Again, if you are going with a similar build, you want to do something else, you're welcome to. Now, talking about the case and spaces, this case, it supports graphics cards up to 320 millimeters in length. So the 3060 Ti I chose for this build, it fit very easily, no issues. Now, one tiny issue that I did run into, that was with the radiator being mounted up top. It was a little too close to that CPU cable, so I couldn't use my custom sleeves, which were stiffer. But all in all, it seems to look fine, doesn't it? But the bigger question here is, yeah, it looks good. How does it perform? I tried running a few benchmarks and the results just fine. Given we did allocate most of our budget towards the GPU, Heaven and 3D Mark ran great. That's no surprise. We've known how the 3060 Ti performs for a while now. So yeah, great numbers. Cinebench, on the other hand, that was one I really was interested in checking out. And the score is excellent. We get a 30% boost in single core scores from last gen. If I remember correctly, the 5700X did something around 1500 points on this. And with multi-core, I think it did around 14,000. So that makes it a 40% improvement generation on generation with multi-core. Now this is all theory, so let's get to actual practicality with gaming. Spider-Man Remastered is one of the first titles I tested, and it was smooth, it ran great. Now I did run into issues, but not the type you'd think. I knew I had a controller here which I was relying upon, and turns out that really wouldn't work. So with the rest of my controllers lying in the UAE, I had to play this game on a keyboard and mouse. I have run through this twice, once on the PS4 Pro, once on the PS5, but on the keyboard, I do seem to suck. So apologies for making you guys sit through this, but it still does drive home the point that the gameplay is very smooth. So hey, point delivered. The next game I tried out was Cyberpunk 2077, and this is at 1440p Ultra with DLSS disabled. It seems smooth though, excellent results, not surprising at all given what we have underneath. 67 FPS on average, with 52 being the lowest it ever dipped to. Now I was also curious to see if we could go 60 plus with Ray Tracing Ultra, but hey, I wanted to be reasonable, so I dropped out to 1080p, switched to the Ray Tracing Ultra preset, this time with DLSS on, and the results were pretty impressive. The final numbers, 91 FPS average, with it never dropping below 67. Forza Horizon 5 is another super popular game right now, another one you guys wanted me to test, and here's this rig handling it at 4K with the Ultra preset nonetheless. And here's the end result, an impressive 63 FPS. So basically it seems like this rig is capable of running the latest AAA titles at 1440p, 60 FPS with settings at Ultra. With some titles like Forza Horizon 5, you should be able to push that up to 4K, but for most games, if you want the Ultra preset, then 1440p should be the sweet spot. If you want to push either the resolution or the frame rate, you're going to have to compromise somewhere. Maybe to push resolution, you'd have to drop to high settings, or to push frame rates, drop down to 1080p. You get what I'm saying. Overall, I love what we've put together here. What do you guys think? If you were to build a gaming PC at this price point, what would you do different? What would you change? What do you think you would have done better? Let me know in the comments below. And with that, we are at the end of my first PC build in a long time. So whatever your thoughts are, loved it, hated it, whatever, if your emotions are more complex and you have something to say, let me know in the comments below. And with that, it is time for me to bid you adieu. Thumbs up, thumbs down based on whatever you felt about this video. Subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that bell icon if you haven't yet. And thanks for your time. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, my name's Ash. You've been watching C4E Tech, and I'm signing off for now. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.